to What's for Dinner today. After the Christmas season, New Year is quickly approaching. We kind of have a Chinese, northern, southern tradition mix, but most of it because every year we get these Japanese mochi cake given to us every year from my mother-in-law and grandma-in-law. We like to make a Japanese vegetable soup, and then I like to toast the mochi really crispy on the outside, and the middle is perfectly chewy, and you can stretch it super long. We can show you in a second. This soup, you can make it vegetarian, vegan, all you want. Just put in your favorite vegetable, but just a few things that you always have to have. One is the radish, the other one being the carrot. It's good if you like mushroom, just to add a little bit of umami. It's like a nature's MSG, but much healthier. It just comes with mushrooms. That's why a lot of people like mushrooms, and might be the reason why some people don't. Let's get to it. Let's check what are the ingredients. First of all, we'll need carrot, and then we'll need radish. And then today, most people just throw away this part, and it's very wasteful. You can actually eat this. They are spicy, but more like grown up. Spinach, not the baby. Spinach texture, and then some mushrooms. I love mushrooms. So to make the presentation more interesting, you can add in a little bit of snap peas or snow peas, whatever you have on hand. For the non-vegetarian, you can actually add in a little bit of a Japanese fish cake. And the outside is red, and usually the middle comes in white. So it's like white and red. In Japan, that's a symbol of a rising sun. And we're going to make a pattern out of it, and that's also going to symbolize the rising sun in the morning, which is what a lot of people do in Japan, is to watch the sunrise on New Year's Day. Remember, we always wash our vegetables. These are actually not radishes. These are Japanese turnip. The dried up part, sometimes depending on how long the carrot has been sitting out, you can choose not to use it. And you want to chop it thick because we're going to cut it into a shape. And it's gonna be really hard if you're trying to make it really thin. And we will bring a cutter, sort of like a cookie cutter, but a little bit smaller, and cut it into a plum blossom. Dun -dun, like that. So when you're choosing the carrot, it's best that you choose the ones that are a little thicker. And I like to buy it in bulk. Make the plum blossom look more realistic. You will want to kind of go in that V shape again. This is optional. You don't have to, but I think it's really interesting if you do. It just makes the whole dish look more complete. And this is what you will have. And for this one, we just cut off its two ends because the ends are really bitter. And then slice it a little bit on the thicker side. And then we're gonna cut it into little triangles. And since it's kind of hard to peel off the skin on these tiny little turnips, I like to just keep it on. Let's prepare the green leaves. We are going to keep these intact until we boil them. It's just easier that way. You don't have to do this step, but it's easier if you do, is that I like to remove the fibery thread that I don't like eating because it's kind of hard to chew. So I usually like to remove it whenever I'm making anything with this snap pea. And then let's do the mushrooms. We're gonna kind of cut out a star. How you do is that you kind of try to do a V shape from the side, like that. Isn't that pretty? How to cut the Japanese fish cake, it's kind of like you're going through this zigzag to mimic how the rising sun, I guess, fogged by the fog. So it's kind of like that. And also just makes it more interesting, the presentation. And it's easier if you kind of leave it at room temperature for a little bit, so it gets softer and it's easier to cut that way. So you can see here we have a beautiful color going on, and we're going to boil them individually. Let's go boil some vegetables. So today I'm gonna use packed dashi because I cannot find where my bonito flakes or my dried kelp went. But usually if you're a vegetarian, you can use dried kelp and you just soak it in boiling water for like anywhere between 15 minutes to half an hour, or you can soak it overnight. It's all up to you. It would get more flavor out of it, and then you will actually discard the kelp, and then when you bring the water to a boil, then you add the bonito flakes to make it what's so-called dashi. I think it's just kind of like a Japanese way of making natural MSG. It's essentially, chemically speaking, I think they're the same, but today, because I can't find either of them, I'm just gonna use packed dashi. And then you don't want to use too much. I will probably use just like a tiny teaspoon of it, and you can smell it right away. That's why these are really convenient, but I do try to go the natural way instead of using these convenient packs, but today I can't find them, so I'll just have to use it. I put in the ones that was the outside carrot plum cutout, because those ones I'll have to fish out before I put in all of these beautifully cut vegetables. So I put them in first so that the flavor would get in. We can eat this like separately or something for the presentation sake. No food goes to waste. Carrots, generally they only take like 2 to 3 minutes to cook through, and how you can tell is that it softens. You can test it out first just by poking a chopstick or like a fork or something through. If it easily pierces through, that means it's ready. And we're gonna put it in there for 2 minutes for now. And then the mushrooms, since they're bigger chunks, they're actually pretty hard to boil down, so I'm gonna also throw these in. I'm not worrying about not being able to fish them out because they're so huge. You can choose to put a lid on it. Putting a lid on it actually raises the temperature inside the pot a little bit, and that makes it easier to cook. I mean, I guess shortens the time. For the mushrooms, actually it takes quite a long time to cook since we're putting them in whole. They're pretty thick. It just really depends on the size of the mushrooms that you're using, and I'm guessing this one is gonna be like anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes. How you can tell is that it kind of becomes transparent instead of so white and thick and firm. That's how you can tell. We just want to take out all these that doesn't look so great, and they're cooked through after 2 minutes, and then we'll start the next step. We'll put in the leaf part of the Japanese turnip, but then you want to put the stem in first because it takes longer to cook, and just leave the leaf out like that. I'll usually just hold it for a little bit because it doesn't quite stay in place. After the leaf turns a few shades darker or more vibrant green, you can just go ahead and take it out. You can see that the leaf has already softened a little bit. We don't want to keep it cooking in there for too long, otherwise it will get overcooked. Smells really good. I really like the smell of the leafy green. For example, carrots. You should never eat carrot raw. I don't understand. Like baby carrots, sure, it's sweet, it's juicy, but you don't get any of the vitamin D out of it because it has to be cooked through, preferably with a little bit of fat for your body to be able to absorb that nutrient. And a lot of people don't know that. I'm putting in the Japanese turnip because I see that the mushrooms are almost done because they are kind of almost completely translucent. Japanese turnip kind of takes a minute to cook because we're using a lot of vegetables, and we're using leafy greens, we're using mushrooms, we're using turnips, we're using carrots, and we're using peas. You get vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C, and you get a lot of dietary fiber. So that's gonna pump you up for the upcoming year. This is the turnip leaf, and it's packed with nutrients and fiber, and it tastes delicious. We'll just have to make it a little bit more presentable. I like to just lay it down very, very neatly, and then I'll cut it into pieces. We'll add it into the bowl right before we serve it for the best presentation. Cut it into bite-sized pieces, just a little bit longer. I like it to keep the length consistent. If you only boil it for 30 seconds to a minute, it stays crunchy. So we'll just want to cut it diagonally, and it's gonna stand out in the presentation. I mention that word a lot because I find a lot of Japanese cooking is pretty delicate. It's gonna look really good. That's how we're gonna put it into the bowl. You can see the mushrooms are mostly transparent, sort of, so that means it's about done. We are going to put in the carrots as well as the fish cake for about 2 minutes. The soup is about to be ready in 2 minutes, so we're going to toast the mochi right now. You can get these from grocery store, frozen or dried. I like to buy the dried one because I feel like it stores a little bit longer. We can just use a toaster and line it with the tin foil. And you want to set them apart a little bit because they kind of puff up really big. Our soup is ready. Let's fill it up. Before we do that, we want to throw these in for just a short 30 seconds. So we want to just warm up the vegetables that we cooked earlier, and I like to dress it with daikon first. We can use it as kind of a base, like a painting board, and then we'll add in a fish cake symbolizing the rising sun. The snap peak, make it look like a bamboo, symbolizing the longevity. And then we'll add in a little bit of soup. And then for this toasty one, I'll add it just on the top like that. Thank you everyone for watching. If you like us, give us a thumbs up and subscribe down below. That's the biggest support for us. I wish you a happy new year and we'll see you next year. Bye!